most of the time, if you know 100 turkey hunters, you might know one that can actually do anything with their natural voice. So it's something different, and it is something natural. You don't hear slate. You don't hear glass. You don't hear crystal. You don't hear aluminum. Ow, 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 ow. And then I start mixing in, putting an echo chamber in my tongue. Really? I'm 71. I'm going to learn something this year. I do not know it all. And that's the beauty, especially of turkey hunting, is I'm going to learn something. It might be something what not to do. The day that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt, I got this figured out. I'm fixing to put a load of Apex in his face. He makes a fool out of you. And what does it do? That's an education is what it is.
Speak about education. I want to get into discussing how you got introduced to turkey hunters as a teenager. From the calling aspect and some of those stories from some of those guys. And we actually have one of those guys.
Oh, you have
on
my
the
hero
wall,
up there. Yes,
Jack,
you do.
Jack Dudley. But walk us through that. Like, what was that experience like, kind of starting to meet guys like that?
Here again, we go back to family oriented. Carthage, Mississippi had a big 4th of July celebration. To where you got half a chicken and slaw and beans, French fries, whatever, for $3 to $5, and they had the state championship turkey calling contest, the state championship duck calling, owl hooting, archery, skeet shoot, you name it, hatchet blowing, grease pole calling contest, kids catching grease pigs, good old time country days. But it was the state championship turkey calling. And, of course, my feet were wet then, a little bit. They were damp, with turkey hunting. And my parents took it to me. In fact, that first year, I won the fishing rodeo. And then as they were presenting me the plaque on the stage, they found out I was a year too old. And I had to give the plaque back, which was fine. You know what I mean? Heck, I got to catch fish that day. That's all that mattered. You know what I mean? But I met a gentleman by the name of Jack Dudley. Jack Dudley at that time, and he's dead and gone now, and I'm sorry to say that. He was strictly a natural voice caller. Okay? And by the end of the first day, I was 12, 13, whatever it was, somewhere in that range bracket. I was kind of like that leech. I had attached myself to him. And, how do you do this? How do you do that? So on, so forth. I was squeaking a little bit with my natural voice. And one day he refined me out and he said, son, you're a natural. Can't everybody do this? And he said, keep working at it. And then Jack was probably prior to Ben Roger Lee by a year or two as far as traveling, but he was strictly locally, if you know what I mean. The state of Mississippi, he might have tipped into Alabama a little bit and would go to like a gun and reel sportsman's club that we were in and do a little talk, a little 30-minute talk talking about turkey calling and stuff like that. I was very fortunate that my parents would take me to those. And I was a sponge is what I was. And then finally got it to the point to where, once a month or so, I had 5 minutes on long distance. Y'all don't know what that is. The circle dial that I was limited to, and I bugged the ever living snot out of him. And 15 years old, that became an annual event that we went to. 15 now, I've killed some birds. Most of them's beards about that long, and that was all legal back then. I go back, and Jack looks at me, and he said, son, you're there. I said, sir? He said, you're there. I want to see you on this stage next year. I said, Mr. Dudley, I can't beat you. He said, well, I'm retiring regardless. But he said, you're there. I want to see you on this stage. At 16, I walked up on the stage, and I won my first Mississippi State Championship We didn't have divisions back then. So, heck, I think I was about the only kid, 16-year-old competing back then. And I won the state championship. And then it was just like pouring gasoline onto a fire. That became my sport. That was my football. That was my basketball. That was my baseball. That was my sport. Correct.
And another part of that I wanted to get into was I've heard you say this before, that nothing beats a natural voice call.
I guess it's because of vocal cords, if you know what I mean. And then let me ask you a question. How many people do you know that can use their natural voice?
Not many. I don't know. I don't think I know anybody who straight up natural voice calls for turkeys in the woods consistently.
He ain't never heard it. It's something different. He hasn't been educated. Okay? So that natural voice, and at my age, I've lost mine. Occasionally I can have it back and forth, but I basically have lost. That'll pass. That'd kill turkey. But I can't do what I used to do. I've just worn my larynx out. That's what I've done. Something else, and I don't have one in here, something else that is an extremely good artificial call is a trumpet or a wing bone. Like, let me ask you, how many turkey hunters do you know? Ballpark.
Over 50.
Okay. How many use a trumpet or a wing bone?
2 that I'm aware of.
So that's 48 people that's been blowing something else at their birds and only 2.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's all it is something different. That unique sound. And it's just got that more natural type sound. Is it going to get nasty and raspy? And nope. I can't do it. There are a few people who can, but I can't do it. But always that something different can sometimes close the gap for you. So, natural voice. Most of the time, if you know 100 turkey hunters, you might know 1 that can actually do anything with their natural voice. So it's something different, and it is something natural. You don't hear slate. You don't hear glass. You don't hear crystal. You don't hear aluminum. See, that's one of the things that from the standpoint of a judge in calling competition,
I have to touch on this because your natural voice call is very raspy, like impressively raspy. I can do a natural voice call, but it's very, very clean. And
you're exhaling, though.
I'm exhaling.
Yeah.
So talk about that. There's a big difference between inhaling and exhaling.
In the beginning, I strictly exhaled, okay? And between 16 and 17, that little thing called a voice change happened, and I lost it. And I'm going to say 95 plus people, that's how they call is exhaling. But since I already had a background, I understood that what I was doing was I was stretching that larynx. And so I just reversed it and started sucking in is what I started doing, and found out I had more control over my larynx with my throat muscles by inhaling than I did. I can't do anything exhaling anymore than exhaling. In other words, it's kind of like a diaphragm that I could, let's just say, instead of pushing up as tight up against the roof of my mouth, I found out that I can loosen that pressure by loosening my throat muscles, which lets more rattle, come into it. There are probably 25% of the people that are listening could teach themselves how to do it. I'll warn you ahead of time, especially if you're trying to do it inhaling, you're going to get a sore throat because you're doing something that's unnatural to the human voice. But it's like, think of saying, ow, but now I'm going to inhale. Ow, 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 ow. I hadn't done that in a long time. But you're gonna rip your throat up is what you're gonna do. Okay, until you
even exhaling, it gets me when I'm exhaling. I can only do it a couple times, especially if you're out in the woods and it's a pollen-filled day. You
Oh,
know?
Lord, yes.
They'll get you.
Oh, yes.
Turkey be like, man, that sounds pretty good. And then you get to hacking up a lung over there, and they're like, I don't know if that sounds like a turkey after all.
Well, sometimes some of the most courteous sounds you can do is what will actually end up killing the bird. Ben Lee actually told this story, and I got to experience it one day. That I was going over a barbed wire fence. I had laid my gun down on the ground to climb over like a 3-strand barbed wire fence, and I was trying to get in front, quote, in front of a bird that I was working, and I had permission to be on both people's land. And when it squeaked, it went like, "Ow." You got to be kidding me! I was just, eek, ow. God dog, he's done a few steps closer. Then I try to get my gun, and of course, I get hung up in the barbed wire fence in my crotch with the barbed wire sticking into my claw. I finally got the gun in my hand, and I am literally up against the fence post going, and I killed a bird. It was that different sound.
Called him in with a fence post.
Caught him in with the fence.
Hey, man, if it works, it works.
Ben's told that same story, and I went, yeah, bull, you know what? And until it happened to me. So strangest things can happen. He can want to hear the strangest sound.
Now, what about the gobble? How are you doing the gobble by inhaling? Okay.
And then I start mixing in, putting an echo chamber in my tongue. That goes first now. And that used to be my one thing that everybody, Mr. Preston, will you gobble for me? But it just, the quality is not there anymore.
It's better than what I can do.
Well, here's my philosophy. It'll kill a turkey.
Just
When I can do it. I
Right.
can't do it all the time.
But just be careful doing it on public land. Is that right?
I do not recommend anybody gobbling on public land that's got me shot twice. A sound I do like to use that is a gobbler sound, if you want me to visit it for that in a minute, is spitting and drumming. Oh, God dog it. Y'all got one of my secrets.
You saying too much?
Hang
Listen, you
on.
didn't say that last time. I'm glad we talked.
Yeah. We didn't get that on the first
Had
go
to, had to
round.
bait you into it.
I'm still trying to figure out a device I can make to do that with.
I have heard someone years ago say that they used a spit and drum call and that they were like killing the fire
There-
out of
I do
long
it.
spurred turkeys with it. And ever since then, I've been trying to find someone who would talk about it. So
I know-
I'm gonna
I-
press you on this a little bit.
Not only will it kill a long-spurred bird, but it'll also kill that 2-year-old bird. That is what when a 2-year-old is ready to come, he's a movie star. But at the same time, a 2-year-old can be one of your toughest birds that they are, because he wants to breed, but he's scared to death. That spitting and drumming works on all age class birds. But if you break it down into human terminology, it's real simple. Here is a gobbler with a hen, because I'm been yelping. You follow what I'm saying? It's not the first call I pull out or the first call that I do. You've already been yelping, so you've established that there's a hen there that is wanting to be submissive or wanting to breed, wanting to have company, okay? With that being said, by spitting and drumming, I just got through saying that there is another male gobbler in here that ain't brave enough to be vocal. That's the philosophy that I use. Now, sometimes that could, in a human type terminology, also be, and here comes a secret for you, that 1.5 plus bird that does not want to be challenged. But in any situation, I have not, except for a Jake or two, I have not had that spook birds. It might not always call them in, but it ain't going to scare them.
And you do it just like how you just did it right here. Just that loud.
Oh, yes. Natural voice. I mean, like I said, I'm trying, and there's been some apparatuses that have been invented, but nothing beats this right here. Maybe one day before I die, I can come up with that. I came up with that, the flap and scratch, and I'm very happy with it.